Some moments change everything. Like when a single joke isn't funny at all. When a gift becomes a weapon. And a mother finds out her son wants to bury her, not with flowers, but with lies. I worked and saved for 5 years to buy my son, Nathan, a new black Ford Bronco. It cost over $62,000. I used my holiday bonuses and worked extra hours at the grocery store. I even cut my own bills to make it happen. When Nathan was 16, he used to point at that exact car, back when we shared frozen dinners and lived in a small, rented apartment. Someday, he would say, I believed him. And here I was, 62 years old, tired but full of love, giving my only child his dream car, with the title in his name. I didn't expect him to cry or make a big fuss. I just wanted a moment, a hug that felt real. But Nathan barely looked at the car. He gave me a quick hug, just one arm, and his eyes were already on his friends who were pulling up in fancy cars. His girlfriend, Carly, walked across the lawn, her face tight, like she smelled something cheap. The party was at a big rental house, a mansion in a rich part of town, and it was full of people I didn't know. I brought a casserole, a family habit, but Nathan waved it away like I had embarrassed him. Mom, just chill. Everything's taken care of, he said. Then he leaned in, pretending to whisper, but loud enough for his friends to hear. Actually, you can help me out real quick. He grabbed a silver drink tray, put it in my hands, and pushed me toward the guests. Everyone, meet our waitress for the night, he said with a smirk. Please tip her. She raised me right. Everyone laughed and clapped. I just stood there, holding the tray. My heart was pounding, and my smile was stuck on my face. I felt like I was frozen. Nathan walked away. Carly said something to her friends, and they laughed too. I put the tray down and walked away, acting like nothing had happened. My knees were shaking. I didn't cry. I walked through the fancy kitchen and into a bathroom. I locked the door and sat on the toilet, staring at the floor. That's when I heard voices through the air vent. It was Carly. Told you the car would shut her up, she said. Then Nathan's voice, low and angry. Still need the other paper signed. She's dragging it out. Carly replied, just get her to dinner next week. She'll cave. I held my breath. I didn't move until they were gone. When I finally stood up, I felt different. I wasn't sad or angry. I just felt done. I washed my face, fixed my makeup, and walked out of the bathroom with a smile. On my way out, I saw my casserole in the kitchen trash, untouched. I passed the Bronco again. The big red bow was crooked. I didn't look back. I just drove home, turned off my phone, and poured a glass of wine. My hand shook the whole time. What Nathan had done wasn't just mean. It was a planned distraction. And I knew my son. He wouldn't do something so bold without a bigger reason. Something else was happening. I just didn't know what yet. But I was going to find out. I didn't sleep that night. Carly's words kept playing in my head. Told you the car would shut her up. This wasn't just a cruel joke. It was a plan. My son could be selfish, but this was different. This was thought out. At 4:30 in the morning, I got up and sat at my kitchen table, staring at my old lockbox. Inside were my most important papers. My birth certificate, Nathan's, my divorce papers, my father's will, and a single page, the deed to the old house he left me. The house Nathan used to call Grandpa's haunted shack. I had kept it in my name all these years. But when I looked in the box, the deed was gone. I looked everywhere, through every file and folder. Nothing. At 9 a.m., I called the county office. I asked a clerk to check the ownership of my property. He looked it up and then paused. It shows a transfer of ownership, he said, to a business called Omnicore Investments. The transfer had happened 6 weeks ago. My mouth felt dry. I asked who signed the transfer. He read the name, mine. Was this a legal signature? I asked. Yes, he said, notarized by your brother, David Monroe. I hung up before I could scream. David? My brother, who I hadn't spoken to in over 10 years. The same brother who had told Nathan I was a control freak. At our father's funeral, the same one who had borrowed money from me and never paid it back. I grabbed my phone and found Nathan's last text message. "Dinner soon." I replied. "Now, yes, let's talk." My hands were shaking. Next, I called my friend, Tasha. She answered right away. "I'm getting a weird feeling," I said. She didn't ask what happened. She just said, "I'm already putting on pants." 20 minutes later, she was at my kitchen table looking through my papers. She asked if they had faked my signature or tricked me while I was on medicine. Then I remembered the eye surgery, the paperwork Nathan had brought over that day in April. "Mom, just sign this real quick for insurance stuff," he had said. I was still tired from the surgery. I signed 5 or 6 pages without reading them. "I think they used that moment," I whispered. "They got me when I was weak." Tasha was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "We need to get mean." She opened her old laptop and started looking into public records. She found that Omnicore Investments had only one officer listed, Carly Ortega. It was right there in the open. The car wasn't a gift. It was hush money, a big red bow to keep me quiet while they stole from me. They didn't think I would notice. Even worse, they didn't think I would fight back. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to confront them. I was going to destroy their plan, cleanly and in public. But first, I needed proof. I needed to hear Nathan say it out loud. And if I knew my son, all it would take was one fake dinner and a little push to make him show his hand. He always loved to brag when he thought he had won. So I made my plan. I spent the next 3 days pretending everything was normal. I smiled at Nathan's texts while my mind raced, trying to find any mistake they might have made. I looked through old emails for any sign of the property transfer, but I found nothing. The files Carly had emailed me were labeled medical claims. The papers looked harmless. It was a perfect plan. They waited until I was weak, hid the forged deed in a stack of real medical forms, got me to sign, and then filed it under a business name that no one would ever trace. I started a notebook, writing down every detail I could remember. She didn't even ask. "Still need the other paper signed. Get her to dinner next week." Each piece of that overheard conversation became a piece of my plan. I looked up Omnicore Investments again and found it had been started just 2 months ago. It was a shell company with no address, no website, but the registration agent was Carly Ortega. This wasn't a sudden, bad choice. This was a well-thought-out plan. And I was the one who had given them the car to celebrate their crime. I made copies of everything, emails, screenshots, public records, and put them in a folder. I called it Final. Then I did something I promised I wouldn't do. I called David. He didn't answer the first 3 times. On the 4th, he picked up, his voice fake and happy. "My favorite big sister," he said. "Save it." I snapped. "You helped notarize a fraudulent property transfer under my name. I didn't sign it willingly. Now you're going to tell me why you helped my son steal from me." He was quiet for a second. "It was Nathan's idea," he said. "He told me you were giving him the house and that you just didn't want to deal with the paperwork yourself." "And you believe that?" I asked. "Without calling me? Without checking?" He started to talk about taxes and how Carly had a spreadsheet that made it all look right. I cut him off. "You knew I was recovering from surgery. You knew I was weak. You knew I would never just hand over Dad's house." He just sighed. "I needed the notarizing fee," he mumbled. "Rent's been tough." That was it. He sold out our family name for a few $100s. I hung up without another word. Tasha came over that night. "You're really going to do this?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm going to invite them all to dinner. Nathan, Carly, David. I'm going to feed them like family. And then I'm going to bury them like enemies." She raised her glass and said, "Well, let's make sure the main course is scorched earth." We stayed up late, printing and organizing everything. The last thing I did before bed was look at an old photo of my dad. He was smiling, a beer in his hand, the day he signed the deed over to me. I touched his face in the photo. "Don't worry," I said out loud. "I'll fix this. I'm not letting them take what you left me." Then I turned out the light and started counting down the days until dinner. I didn't expect to get lucky that fast, but Sometimes the truth just falls into your lap. Tasha was the one who found it. An old voicemail on her phone that she almost deleted. Nathan's voice came through, clear as day. Once she signs the rest, it's done. I don't care if she figures it out later. Carly said she'll spin it like a tax move or something. Then Carly's voice, faint in the background. Just keep smiling. She's still soft from the car. The words hit me like a truck. Soft from the car. The Bronco was a bribe. All those years I spent saving were a setup for them to steal my legacy while I stood there smiling. I had Tasha forward the voicemail to me and saved it in 3 different places. This voicemail changed everything. It wasn't just about hurt feelings now. It was legal. It was fraud. I had their voices proving it. But more than that, it was the final proof that Nathan wasn't my son anymore. That was a thief talking on that message. A snake. If he could talk about me like I was just a dumb problem to get past, then he had already made his choice. I spent the next day printing everything, building a timeline, and tracking the paper trail. I even called a friend of Tasha's who worked in real estate law. She confirmed it. If I didn't knowingly sign those papers while I was on medicine, it was a crime. I wanted to scream and cry, but I didn't. I just kept working. There was no time for emotion now, only strategy. That night, I sat in bed, listening to the voicemail again. I memorized every word. By the 4th time, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I realized I didn't just want them to be found out. I wanted them to be found out in a way they couldn't talk their way out of. I wanted it to be public, undeniable, and permanent. That's when I started planning the dinner. Not a private talk with a lawyer, not a quiet scolding. No, I wanted them surrounded by people who used to believe they were good. Family friends, people who had watched Nathan grow up. I wanted every lie to fall apart in real time. Tasha was with me completely. We'll need cameras, she said. We planned to hide a couple of small cameras in the light fixtures. She was calm about it, like she had done this before. We picked a date 3 weeks away. I invited Nathan and Carly, texting them directly. Dinner at my place. Family only. Just like old times. They replied with fake excitement. Nathan even added a heart emoji. I stared at it for 5 minutes, thinking about all the times I had believed his smiles were real. But now I knew better. He hadn't just drifted away. He had been moving away from me on purpose. I started practicing what I would say. I imagined Carly's face when I played the voicemail, David's panic when I handed him the notarization timeline, and Nathan's silence when I looked him in the eye and told him he wasn't my son anymore. The fantasy played out 100 different ways, but in every one, I won. Not with screaming, but with facts. Calm anger. A public undoing they couldn't recover from. That voicemail wasn't a mistake on their part. It was a gift. And I was going to use it to turn their whole world upside down. 1 week after I sent the dinner invite, Nathan showed up at my door without calling first. He was holding a bunch of flowers from the grocery store and had the same nervous smile he used to have when he broke something as a kid. I let him in without a word. He walked in like he owned the place, put the flowers on the counter like they could fix everything, and said, "Mom, I've been doing a lot of thinking." He gave me that look he thought still worked, half sincere, half fake. "I know I messed up," he continued. "The party, that wasn't cool. I thought it was funny, but I crossed a line." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and told him to sit down. He sat at the kitchen table where he used to do his homework 25 years ago. For a second, I could almost pretend he was still that kid, the one who asked me how to spell embarrassed and never wanted to go to sleep unless I checked the closet for monsters. But that kid was gone. I poured him coffee and sat across from him, my hands folded, looking calm. He started a long speech, talking about how busy he was, how Carly was pressuring him, and how he felt disconnected from his roots. It was a lot of empty words, no real details, just a blurry picture of fake regret. "I want to fix things," he said, looking right at me. "That's why I think dinner's a great idea. We can reset, start fresh, just you and me." I smiled and said, "That's all I want too. He left with a hug that felt more like a quick search. As soon as the door closed, I texted Tasha. He took the bait. What Nathan didn't know was that my phone was recording the entire conversation in my apron pocket, not for court, but for me, to remind myself later that none of it was real. 2 nights later, the lies started to fall apart. Carly called my home phone. She never calls. She left a voicemail for Nathan, but she must have dialed the wrong number. And that mistake gave me everything I needed. Her voice was sharp and clear. He bought it. Dinner's happening. Make sure you bring the rest of the paperwork this time. David said he needs her signature on that last clause before the title moves clean. My blood ran cold. The fake apology, the flowers, the coffee talk, it was all a setup. They thought that if they softened me up, I'd sign one last time and lose the last valuable thing I owned. But what they didn't know was that I was already 5 steps ahead. I saved Carly's voicemail and added it to my folder of proof. That weekend, I spent my time installing 3 small, hidden cameras in my dining room. Tasha helped with the tech. 1 camera in a fake plant, 1 in a light fixture, and 1 behind an air vent. We made sure the sound and picture were perfect. No wires, no blinking lights. Just silent little eyes watching everything. I also bought 2 extra dining chairs, so there would be nowhere for them to hide when the truth came out. I even made a seating chart. Nathan across from me, Carly to his left, David next to her. I wanted them boxed in with no escape. By Sunday, my folder was complete and organized. I had 100 dinners in that house over the years, but this one was different. This one was war, dressed up as a family meal. And they had no idea they were walking into their own end. I cleaned my house with a fierce focus. Every surface was scrubbed clean, every corner dusted. Not because I cared what they thought, but because I wanted the setup to be perfect. The table was set for 6. Me at the head, Nathan and Carly across from me, David next to Carly, and Tasha at the far end as my backup. And 1 empty chair just to keep them guessing. I used my mother's old tablecloth, the one we only used on holidays. The folder of documents sat hidden inside a cookbook on the counter. The cameras were live. Tasha came early to help me prepare the food. Roast chicken, potatoes, and green beans with bacon. Even though we both knew no one would eat anything once the truth came out, it mattered to me that they couldn't say I didn't host them like family one last time. Nathan arrived first, wearing a button-up shirt like he was playing a part he didn't believe in. He had that politician's smile that didn't reach his eyes. Carly came in behind him, fake laughing, holding a bottle of wine. David walked in last, smelling faintly of old sweat and whiskey, his eyes darting around like he already knew something was wrong. I greeted them warmly, took their jackets, poured drinks, and made small talk. We sat down just as the sun set, making the dining room glow in a soft, gold light, the kind of light that makes people let their guard down. We toasted to family, and I held back the feeling of sickness in my throat long enough to clink glasses. The first 10 minutes were tense. Fake compliments about the house, the food, the weather. I let them talk. I watched Carly try to move every conversation to future plans and investments, like she was selling something. David was quiet, drinking his wine too fast. Nathan kept looking at Carly as if he needed her permission to breathe. I waited until the plates were half empty, until the wine made them just relaxed enough. Then I smiled. I stood up and said, "Before dessert, I have a little something I'd like us all to do together. Just a small activity to wrap up the evening." Nathan laughed nervously. Carly raised an eyebrow. I walked to the counter, took the hollowed-out cookbook, and opened it. One by one, I handed each of them a sealed envelope. They looked confused at first, then curious, then cautious. "What's this?" Carly asked, her voice suddenly thin. "A thank you," I said. "From me to you. Go ahead, open them." They did. As the papers unfolded, so did their faces. Carly's mouth twitched. Nathan blinked, as if trying to unsee what he was reading. David just stared blankly. Inside each envelope was a complete copy of my proof. Transcripts, screenshots, voicemails, public filings, notarization logs. Everything. I sat down and folded my hands. I know what you did. I said, I know how you did it. And I know who helped you. I didn't invite you here tonight for an apology. I invited you to let you know this is the last meal you'll ever have with me as a family. Carly tried to pretend. This doesn't prove anything, she said. This is all just a guess. I didn't even look at her. I looked at Nathan. You used my trust, my weakness, and my name to steal from me. I said, you used my brother to make it legal, and you used that car to distract me. You thought you were playing me, but here's the thing. You did it all on camera. Every word, every lie, every fake apology. You didn't hide your trail. You made a clear path, and now it's mine. He said nothing. He just stared at the folder. I stood up again and reached for one more thing, a small flash drive in a clear case. I placed it in the middle of the table. This has the video from tonight, I said. All of it. You can't stop me from using it. And if you even try, I'll make sure every person who ever shook your hand sees who you really are. No one touched their drinks after that. No one finished their plates. No one made eye contact when I walked out of the room and left them there. They were silent, choking on all the things they thought they had gotten away with. I could have ended it right there. I could have gone back in and let the silence destroy them. But that wouldn't have finished what they started. Not until I said it out loud. I stood outside the room for a few seconds, letting the moment sink in, letting them feel the weight of their own guilt. When I stepped back in, I didn't sit down. I stood at the head of the table, my hands at my sides. I wasn't angry or loud. I was just done. Nathan looked up at me like a scared teenager, his eyes searching my face for some softness, some forgiveness, some way out. Carly sat stiffly, her arms crossed, trying to look in control. David just stared at his empty glass, as if he wanted to disappear into it. I cleared my throat. I thought a lot about what to say here. I began. But the truth is, you didn't just take a house or a deed. You took me. You emptied out the last real thing I had left. The last piece of my father, of my name, of what I built from nothing. And you did it while smiling, while calling me Mom. I looked directly at Nathan. When he met my eyes, I saw no child in him, no trace of the boy I raised. It was just a man I didn't know. So here's what I'm taking back, I said, my voice steady. I'm taking back my name, my boundaries, and the idea that family means love just because of blood. As of tonight, I don't consider you my son. You are not my family. You are just a man who stole from a woman who would have died for him. He blinked hard, as if he expected me to take it back. I didn't. Carly, I hope you got everything you wanted out of this, I said, turning to her, because what you've taken can't be returned, and what you've ruined can't be cleaned up with wine and fake smiles. And David, I turned to my brother, you were dead to me a long time ago. This just makes it official. No one spoke. No one moved. The air was thick with their failure, with the truth that was now out in the open. I reached under the table and pulled out one more folder, an official letter from my lawyer. It said that I was taking back all of Nathan's rights to my things and that he was not to use my name or property again. I put it in front of him. This starts now, I said. You will not get $1 from me, now or ever. You will not speak for me. You will not show up to my funeral. You are a stranger. Then I turned and walked out of the dining room, out of my own home, onto the front porch where the cool night air felt like freedom. I stood there, listening. No voices behind me. No footsteps. No apologies. Just silence. The kind that tells you they knew I meant every word. That was the night I buried a son. Not with a casket or a tombstone, but with the truth and a stack of papers. The same night, I posted the video. Not to be mean, but to protect myself. If I didn't control the story, they would. I uploaded it from a fake account that Tasha helped me create. The video showed Nathan's joke at the party, then cut to Carly's voicemail, then to the dinner audio where they didn't deny what they did. It ended with my voice saying, "You are not my son anymore." We didn't even add music. The internet did the rest. By morning, it had thousands of shares. By lunch, it had tens of thousands. By dinner, it was on the local news with a headline that read, Mother disowns son after he steals her house and throws her under the bus. People filled the comments, some crying, some angry, some tagging their own children. It spread like fire. I watched it all from my phone in bed. I ignored all the requests for interviews from reporters. I wasn't doing this for fame. I just wanted the truth, to live somewhere that couldn't be deleted. By the end of the week, Nathan's company was full of one-star reviews. People called him a liar and a thief. Carly's real estate license was suspended. David disappeared. I guess even a coward knows when to hide. Nathan sent me one message 3 days later. Please call me. I didn't know it would get this far. I read it and deleted it. It was never about how far it went. It was about how far they were willing to go to take me down. My voicemail filled with messages from strangers. Most of them said, "Thank you." One woman was crying, talking about her own son who stole her savings. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. I was just the one who spoke up. Tasha printed out the best comments and taped them to my fridge like war medals. Hero Mom, one said, "This woman needs a Netflix deal." Another wrote, "We laughed about it, but under the laughter, I knew something had changed forever. Not just in my relationship with Nathan, but in me. For decades, I had made myself small to be a good mother, quiet, giving, too forgiving. But now, I didn't know anyone's silence. Not anymore. The house was mine again. The legal papers I filed at dinner had made sure of that. Nathan was told by his lawyer that he was not to try to claim anything from me ever again, or I would press criminal charges. I wasn't bluffing. Carly, to her credit, tried one more time. She sent a message with a half-hearted apology, saying, "We all make mistakes." I replied, "Once. Mistakes are accidents. You planned yours." Then I blocked her. The internet doesn't stay angry forever, and I knew the attention would fade. But I didn't care about views or likes. What mattered was that the truth had a permanent record, a timestamp they couldn't erase. Even if people forgot my name, Nathan and Carly would never escape that dinner table moment, where everything they built on lies was destroyed right in front of them. That was the justice I needed. Not revenge, just clarity, a new start, and control. 2 months later, Nathan showed up at my door. No warning, just a knock, as if he had forgotten the weight of what he had done. I saw him through the peephole and didn't move at first. I just stood there, holding my breath, deciding if I was going to let him in or if I was going to let the past stay outside. But something inside me needed to look him in the eye one last time. I needed to see if the man who betrayed me could even pretend to be the boy I raised. I opened the door. He looked smaller, not in body, but in spirit. He was empty, as if all his old armor had rusted away. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice soft and tired. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. He walked in slowly, his hands in his pockets, his eyes looking around the living room as if he didn't recognize it. I offered him coffee, not out of kindness, but out of habit. If I was going to end this for good, I needed to see it through to the end. We sat at the table in silence until he finally said, "I don't even know who I am anymore." I looked at him, truly looked at him, and for a second I felt a flicker of pity, not for the man he was, but for the little pieces of the boy he used to be, now hidden under everything he had built on top of me. He started crying. At first, quietly, then shaking with sobs. "I didn't mean to hurt you like that," he said. "Carly had all these plans, and I thought if I could just get that house, flip it, get the cash, we'd be set. I wasn't thinking. I was stupid. I was scared." I let him talk, let him pour out every excuse and confession. When he was done, I said, "You weren't scared. You were selfish. You didn't make a mistake. You made a plan. You just, though. I was too old, too soft, too stupid to catch you." He flinched but didn't deny it. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, his eyes on the table. "I just wanted to say sorry. I don't know what else to do." I looked at him and saw a man who wanted his pain to be over, not because he was sorry for what he had done, but because he couldn't stand being seen as the bad guy. "There's nothing else to do," I said. "You already did it. And you're right. I don't forgive you, but I don't hate you either." I just don't know you anymore. And you don't know me. He looked up, searching my face for something. Maybe mercy, maybe a memory of the old days. But I didn't offer either. I stood up and walked to the front door. He followed, not saying another word. I opened it and stepped aside. As he walked past, I put my hand lightly on his shoulder. It wasn't a mother's touch, and it wasn't a goodbye. It was just a quiet signal that this chapter was closed. He stepped outside and turned around as if he might say something else, but I shut the door before he could. I leaned against it and let the silence settle in like a quiet peace. Not the kind that comes from everything being fixed, but the kind that comes when you finally stop waiting for someone to be who they used to be. It took 3 more weeks for all the legal work to be finished and the house to be officially mine again. But when the county sent the new deed with my name printed on it, I sat on the floor and held it in my lap like a newborn baby. It didn't make me happy in a loud, joyful way. It made me quiet, solid, and sure. The house was never just about money. It was my father's hard work in the foundation, my childhood birthdays in the living room, my mother's chipped teacups in the kitchen. And somehow, it had become the last battlefield in a war I didn't even know I was fighting until it was almost too late. I moved into the old house quietly. No big announcement, no party, just a rented truck and Tasha with a box of cinnamon rolls and a speaker playing old songs. The inside smelled like dust and forgotten years, but it was mine again. I painted the kitchen walls a soft yellow, fixed the broken blinds, and pulled the dead weeds from the yard until my hands were sore. There was a special feeling in the work, in fixing what others had tried to throw away. I turned the second bedroom into a spare room for women who needed a place to stay, women like me, older, tired, forgotten by their own kids. I called it The Nest, a name that felt safe and small, but full of meaning. Within 3 months, I had 2 women living under my roof, helping me keep the place running. I didn't advertise it. I just did it quietly, like planting seeds and waiting. One day, Tasha handed me a package that came in the mail. Inside was a key, the one to the Bronco I had given Nathan. There was a note with it that just said, "I left it at your curb." I didn't go outside to check. I don't know if the car was really there or if he just needed to make a small gesture. But I mounted that key on the wall by the front door, next to a small wooden sign. I made myself. It read, "She wasn't just the help." People noticed it when they walked in. Some asked what it meant. Some didn't. I didn't explain. That wasn't their story to carry. Every Sunday, I walk through each room and touch the walls with my hand, as if to remind the house that it is safe again, that no one will rip it from under us, that it will never be used as a weapon against love again. Sometimes I get letters from strangers who saw the video. They thank me for doing what they couldn't, for saying what they weren't allowed to. A few are from women who tell me they have also cut off their own sons, and they want to know what comes next. I always write back, "You start over. That's what comes next. You build from the quiet up."